Okay, I think I am live. Hello and welcome back to one of my YouTube lives. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Veronia and I am a money coach and I basically help spenders save more money. So, in today's live, we're going to talk about how to save for your first 10K without restricting your spending. And I specifically wanted to do this live because I think sometimes we feel like in order for us to save a decent amount of money, we need to be able to stop completely spending everything and we need to live a completely different life to what we're doing before. And I will argue that that's not entirely the case. So, I wanted to talk about the three things that you can start thinking about if you want to be able to save 10K, whether it's this year or whether it's next year, but to do it without actually restricting your spending. So let's get started. And as usual, if you have any questions, please do also let me know in the comments as well. All right, let's get started. So, the first thing when it comes to saving your 10K, and I have my notes here because I want to make sure that I'm saying the right thing and I remember, but when it comes to trying to save up your first 10K without restricting your spending, one of the first things you want to do is figure out how much you're actually saving. So figure out how much you want to save. And yes, you might be thinking, okay, I want to save 10K. How am I supposed to figure out how much I want to save when I know I want to save 10K? But what I mean is, how much do you want to save and when do you want to save it? So, for example, do you want to be saving 500 each month in order to reach that 10K? Do you want to be saving 1,000 each month to reach that 10K? One of the things that I think we miss is that when we're thinking about, okay, I really want to be able to reach this goal, whether it's 5K or 10K, we don't necessarily think about when we want to save for it. So, do we want to save for it within the next 6 months, within the year, within 2 years, within 5 years? We don't necessarily figure out how much we actually want to save in that time frame. And so, you want to ask yourself, how much do I want to save? And when do I also want to save for it as well? And so, if, for example, you want to save, 5K one year and another 5K the next year, that will help you dictate how much you should be saving per month or per quarter. And so when you're thinking about saving your first 10K, one of the best things you want to do is just start thinking about the number itself, being a bit realistic about it. Because I think sometimes as well, when we hear the words 5K or 10K, especially if you've not saved much money before, that can seem like a lot of money. Like I remember when I wanted to even save money, my goal, guys, my goal wasn't even 10K. Okay. My goal was actually 1K. That was my first, in fact, no, it wasn't. My first initial goal was actually 500. I wanted to save 500, and I knew that if I could save 500, then I could save 1,000. And I knew that if I could save 1,000, then I could save 10,000 later on. But my first initial goal was that 500. And so for me, I remember telling myself I would love to be able to save my first 500 within the next 3 months. And that was it. That was my main goal. And in fact, it took me a bit longer to save to save for that 500, but that was my initial goal. And so you really want to be asking yourself, okay, how much do I actually want to be saving? And realistically, how much can I also save as well? And that will then help you realize how fast you can actually save for that 10K. Because if you realize that actually you can only save about 250 a month, that's okay. But if you're trying to save 10K within the less than 12 months, you will then have to start thinking about other things you might need to do in order for you to reach that goal. And so you want to figure out, okay, how much can I be saving? And also, when do I want to save for it as well? Madeline says lifestyle inflation is a real thing, making 1,200 to 1,500 per week and still feel like I'm not there yet. Meanwhile, we're taking 1 month off abroad and spending 12K for the trip. Help. Yes, that lifestyle inflation is definitely a thing. I think, especially when I started working back in 2018 and I'd got my graduate job. This was the first job where I'd been earning that much. I was earning about 27K for the year. Although that may not seem much now, right now, But actually, for me, because I was a student before, that was actually a lot of money because I wasn't earning that much. I was literally a postgraduate student doing a part-time job. So to go from that to 27K a year, that was a huge lifestyle change. That was a huge increase in my pay. And so for me, I ended up going into lifestyle creep, lifestyle inflation, because I started spending as much as I was earning. And I didn't realize that me earning that much had an impact on how much I would be able to save if I didn't know what I was doing with my money. And so lifestyle inflation, if you didn't really know what that is, essentially what tends to happen is the more money you make, the more you then start to spend because you're making more money. The more you start to then, you know, increase your expenses, increase your lifestyle. And so that's a really good point that Madeline's just made, in terms of actually when you're now starting to make a lot of money, you may still struggle when it comes to saving money, when it comes to managing money. And so it's honestly, that was something that I struggled with, but that's why I always say that saving money is really a skill. When you're talking about saving money, when I'm talking about saving money, it's actually learning how to take some of that money and actually keep some of that money as well, and not be tempted to spend it. And it's not to say that you can't spend any money, because I am one of those people where I'm a natural spender, so I love to spend. I literally just spent money today. We went to axe throwing for my mum's birthday and I absolutely loved it. And again, guilt-free spending. But you want to get to a point where you can spend money, but you can also save at the same time. I believe that's when you've truly mastered the art of just managing money. The fact that you're able to spend that money and you're also able to save it as well. So that's the first point that I wanted to talk about. It's okay, what will help is actually knowing how much you want to save. So being a bit intimate with your numbers, that's what I also like to say as well. So kind of understanding, okay, this is my pay and this is how much I want to save. And then this is how much I also want to spend. So being realistic with those numbers will also help you if you're trying to save up for your first 10K. Okay. And it could be 10K, it could be 5K, it can even be 1K. The same principle applies. You want to know how much realistically do you want to be saving in order for you to reach that ultimate goal of the 10K. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to completely cut back on your spending, because what you'll be doing in terms of the first step is understanding how much you want to be saving realistically in the first place. Okay, so that's the first point. I'm going to move on to the second point, but again, keep any questions that you have, let me know in the comments and I will 100% answer them. So, the second point that I want to say is when you're thinking about saving up for your 10K, especially if you don't want to completely restrict your spending, one of the best things that you can do is prioritize your savings first. Okay. One of the best things, I'm going to repeat this, one of the best things you can do is prioritize your savings first. And what I mean by this is you want to make sure that when you know how much you want to be saving, so again, going back to the first point, when you understand how much you want to be saving, you want to make sure that you're actually prioritizing those savings. Because one of the biggest reasons why a lot of us feel guilty, that one of the biggest reasons why many of us feel guilty about spending money is because we are not prioritizing our savings first. And the reason why we're not prioritizing our savings is because we don't even know how much we should be saving. We don't know how much we want to save. You know, whether it's each month, each quarter, each week, it doesn't matter. If we don't know how much we should be saving, we don't end up prioritizing those savings. And because we don't prioritize those savings, we spend that money instead, and then we feel guilty about spending money. So if you want to be able to break that cycle, because it can be a vicious cycle where you keep spending money thinking that you should have saved that money, and then you don't save the money, and so you spend it again, and then you feel guilty, and then you're like, oh, I've spent the money already, so I may as well just spend all of it again, next payday. If you want to be able to break that cycle, you want to make sure that you're actually prioritizing your savings first. And you may have heard the term, make sure that save your money first, or like put your savings into something else first. And that's what I mean. You want to pay yourself first. Okay. It is great to be able to pay your bills and pay your creditors. That's all good. But you also want to make sure that you are paying yourself first. That was the right term. I'd forgotten about the term before, but it's pay yourself first. So you want to make sure that you're actually prioritizing your savings. So when you get paid, ask yourself, do I actually prioritize my savings? In that, once I get paid, do I immediately move some of my savings into a separate savings account? Because that's what you want to be doing. You want to be asking yourself, what as soon as I get paid, am I treating my savings as if it's another essential bill? Because what I found is that for many of us, and especially my clients, when it comes to paying bills, no problem. We have no problem paying our bills. If we know that we have to pay our rent or our mortgage, we know that we got utility bills to pay, we know that we even have debt repayments to pay, we know that we have, even a mobile phone contract to pay. If we know that we have certain bills to pay, we will pay it. No matter what happens, we will pay it. And so what my question is where are we putting that same energy when it comes to our savings? Because I remember, even though I was spending my whole paycheck, if you didn't know my story, I used to spend every single penny. Every penny. As soon as it would get to the end of the month, I would just be struggling, literally crawling until payday. But one of the things I realized is that every single time I at least made sure my bills were paid. 100%. Even if I was spending all of my money, I would at least make sure that my bills were paid. That was the one thing I made sure that would happen once I got paid. And so my question is, are we doing the same when it comes to our savings? Are we treating our savings as if it is one of those essential bills? So sorry, this has just moved. Yeah. So are we treating our essential bills as if it is one of our savings? So if you are not prioritizing your savings, you need to ask yourself why. Because at the end of the day, when we don't prioritize our savings, we're basically saying that everything else should be prioritized apart from what we're saving for, apart from us. Everything else is important apart from what we actually are working towards, the key goals that we are working towards, whether it's a house deposit, whether it's retirement, whether it's financial independence, whatever it is, whether it's an emergency fund. Because if you're making sure that all of your bills are paid, but you're not able to actually put money into your savings for a specific goal, what you're saying is that you're prioritizing everything else apart from what you're actually working towards, apart from your specific financial goal. And so when I say prioritize your savings, I mean your savings should be on top of everything else. So, yes, you will pay your bills because you need to pay your bills. Let's be real, you need to pay your bills. Of course, you'll do that, but you also need to have the same energy when it comes to prioritizing your savings, paying yourself as well. That's what you need to be thinking about. I'm going to put money into my bills. I'm going to have that direct debit. I'm going to have that standing order, but I'm also going to have a standing order for my savings as well. And that's exactly how I was able to save 10K so quickly, literally because I just treated it as if it was another bill. I treated it as if it was just a non-negotiable, as if I knew that I had to pay my rent, otherwise I wouldn't have anywhere to live. That is how I treated my savings. It was like I have no choice but to pay for these savings, okay? And it was mainly because I had a specific goal. I knew that I wanted to save a good, decent amount of money. I knew that I needed to have some savings. And so for me, that was really important. And so I knew that those savings would become non-negotiable, okay? So that's what we really want to do. And the thing is, one of the biggest things I realized is that when you prioritize your savings, that then frees you up to spend your money. Now, this may seem weird, especially if you haven't heard me talk about this before. But the reason why I say this is because when you prioritize your savings and you've paid your bills, and so you know that those two things are taken care of, for me, in my head, I think, okay, then the rest of the money is there to be spent. And I do not feel guilty spending that money because I already know that I've taken care of my savings and my bills as well. So I've already taken care of those important things. I've taken care of, my shelter, my transport, being able to eat. Once I know that I've taken care of those and I've taken care of my savings, well, then of course I can just spend the rest of the money. And I can spend the rest of the money on anything I like. That's the difference. Because and the reason why I don't feel guilty again is because I know that I've already saved my money first anyway. And so for me, I like being able to spend money. I'm naturally a spender anyway, but it actually frees me up to be able to spend that money because I know I've already saved it anyway. And so that's why you'll never hear me feeling guilty about spending money, like, oh, I feel like I shouldn't spend money, or oh, I feel like I should do a no spend month. When have you actually seen me do a no spend month? The reason why I don't do that is because I know how to save. When you know how to save, you don't have to do things like a no spend month. You don't have to do things where you completely cut back on all of your spending. You can do it if you like, if you want, if you like the idea of not spending, then fair enough. But for me, I like spending my money. That's the truth. I like spending my money. And so for me, I want to be able to have the freedom to spend that money. And the reason why I can do that is because I know that I can already prioritize my savings and have that already in a separate account, save that money, pay my essential bills, get all my, critical bills all paid for, and then the rest of it I can just spend. And I have the freedom to spend it. And so if you're trying to save up for your first 10K, you want to be asking yourself, am I prioritizing my savings? Am I treating my savings as if it is like another bill? So the way I pay my rent or mortgage, the way I pay my utility bills, am I doing the same when it comes to my savings? Because many of us aren't. But you want to ask yourself, am I actually treating it as if it's another bill? When you start to prioritize your savings, that will then allow you to actually spend some of that money too. So that's the second thing. The third thing, so I've talked about actually knowing how much you want to save and also knowing the timings of when you want to save that money as well. And then the second thing I've spoken about is actually prioritizing your savings. So the third thing that I want to talk about, and have it on my notes so I don't forget, but it is be okay with planning your spending, not restricting your spending. So one of the things that I realized is that people just don't know how to plan. They just don't know how to plan. They just don't know how to plan out their money. That's the thing. But planning your money is not restricting your money. Yeah, I'm going to repeat that. Planning your money does not equal restricting your money. If you're just planning out something, like let's say that you want to go on holiday, would you not plan your holiday? Wouldn't you plan your holiday, right? You would start thinking, okay, when do we want to book flights? Do we want to book a hotel? How are we going to book transport? How are we actually going to get to the hotel? When we get to the place, what are we going to do? Are we going to go, on a hike? Are we going to go to these different restaurants? Are we going to try these different cuisines? What kind of activities are we going to do? You start to plan, right? When you're thinking about going on holiday, you start to plan. The same thing can be applied when it comes to your spending. Because what many of us don't realize is that we plan out how we're going to spend our money without realizing it. So for many of us, we will plan out when we're going to see our friends. We will plan out when we're going to go and see our family. We'll plan out when we're going to go to brunch. We'll plan out when we're going to go to a different restaurant, or when we're going to go to mini golf or whatever it is. We will start to plan things out, especially if you're someone who is quite busy. If you're busy, you have a lot of stuff going on, you will start to plan for that. So, what I'm saying is, when it comes to your spending, again, where are we doing the same when it comes to our spending? And you just want to take it a step further. So, when you're thinking about how often you're going to go out next month, you then just want to ask yourself, okay, well, how much do I want to spend? That's all you want to start thinking about. How much am I going to spend? So if I know that I'm going out 3 times during the month, next month, how much do I think I'm going to spend so that I can start to plan ahead and think about, okay, I get paid this much. This is how much I want to spend. This is how much I want to save. That is all what planning is. When it comes, and the thing is, I think sometimes we don't realize that your spending will impact your savings. So if you are struggling to save and you're thinking about you want to save this 10K, one of the biggest things that will stop you, or one of the biggest things that will have an impact on whether you're able to save that, is your spending. And it's not the fact that you're spending money, it's the fact that you may be overspending in areas which then impacts your saving. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that you need to now completely stop your spending, because I don't do that. I still like to spend. But what I'm saying is, are you actually planning your spending so you know how much realistically you want to be spending, and then how much realistically you can also save at the same time? Okay. So if you know that you tend to go out, if you're going to be going out 3 times this month, okay, you want to be thinking about, okay, well, how much do I want to spend? If I take myself as an example, this month I knew what actually, yeah, no, last month was a pretty busy month because I had a birthday, I had a reunion coming up. So I knew that I was going to be spending money. And so for me, I had to plan that out and think about how much I was going to spend and make sure I had enough money sitting in my account so that I could spend that money without it having an impact on my savings. Especially because I'm married now. Like, I can't be spending all of this money and then, I end up dipping into my savings. Like, it doesn't work like that, right? But the reason why I didn't end up having to dip into things like my savings or anything like that is simply because I just planned out my spending. I had a rough idea on how much I would want to spend and made sure I had enough money in my account for that, so that I wouldn't have to then use my savings. And that meant that I could actually save a decent amount of money for the month. That meant that we could save a decent amount of money, because one of the biggest reasons why people aren't able to save up for 5K or 10K is simply because they keep having to dip into their savings. And the reason why they're having to dip into their savings is because they are not planning their spending. That's simply what is it. That's the problem. If you don't plan your spending, well, how do you know how much you plan to spend? And then how do you know if you're going to be able to save a decent amount? You won't know. And I'm not saying that when it comes to planning your spending, you have to know every single detail. Like, if you know that you're going out to a restaurant, you have to know exactly how much you're going to spend. No, because you never know. Like, things can change, of course. But what I'm saying is that you want to have an idea and make it realistic so that okay, I know that I'm going to these different restaurants during the month. So I want to make sure that I have enough money set aside for that. So if I do spend that money, great, I'm on track. If I do go a bit over, that's still okay. I'm still on track. But you won't know that until you start thinking about it, until you actually start planning it. And this does not have to take a long time either, because most of you already make plans anyway. Let's be real. Many of you are busy. You're busy people. You're busy people. You have things to do. You don't have time to be like going out like everywhere all the time. You have things to do. You have people to see, right? Unless I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But many of you are just busy people. Like, you will plan when you're going to see your friends. Or if you have something spontaneous, then you'll still kind of plan it, because you'll just realize, oh, I'm not doing anything today. Let me do something about it. Again, you can still plan that out, by the way. You can still plan that out. So really think about how you can actually plan your spending. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to take long. It really doesn't have to take that long. If you already know how you're going to be spending your money, if you already know that you're going to be going out to certain places, you just want to ask yourself, okay, well, how much do I want to start spending? That's it. That's all you need to ask yourself. And then you're golden. So it doesn't have to take long. It really doesn't have to take long. If you feel like, oh, planning spending takes like, hours and hours. No, it really doesn't have to. It doesn't have to, especially if you know what you're going to be doing for the next month. Especially if we go into like things like December, when it's Christmas time, you probably have plans already. You probably have plans that have been set from like 2 or 3 months ago. Okay? So one of the best things that you can do is just plan your spending. Plan your spending. That's it. So those are the 3 things that I would say that you would want to be thinking about when it comes to saving up for your 10K. So you want to figure out how much you want to be saving. You also want to think about timelines as well. So you want to think about, okay, when do I actually want to save up for this 10K or 5K or 1K, no matter what your goal is. You want to start thinking about, okay, when do I want to do this? And how much realistically can I save? And I will also say on that first point, you will know how much you realistically want to save when you actually plan out your finances. And again, planning your finances does not have to take long, but all I'm saying is you just want to figure out, okay, this is how much I'm going to be making for this month, even if it's variable income, because I know some people have variable income. That's completely fine. You want to ask yourself, okay, you want to figure out this is how much I'm going to be that's going to be coming in each month. For this month, this is how much my essential bills come to. You then want to ask yourself, how much do I want to save? How much do I want to save for this month? How much do I want to save for this week? If you get paid weekly, you want to ask yourself that. When you then figure out how much you then want to save, you can then start prioritizing those savings. So if you know, okay, realistically, I want to be able to save 500 a month, prioritize that. As soon as you get paid, make sure 500 is transferred into your savings account. Just make sure it's done, that make sure you set up a standing order, or you can actually move the savings in yourself, and make sure you have that. So when you've prioritized that, that's when you can now start spending the money. And when you start spending the money, you just want to start planning out that spending. So you want to ask yourself, okay, well, how much do I also want to spend? Because that will help you to understand how much you can also save as well. When you know how much you realistically spend, you can then use that to also think about how much you can actually realistically save too. So I hope that was useful. If you do, ever want more support, if you're trying to save up for your first 10K, but you need a bit of help and you don't really understand like how to do it, you just want the step-by-step process, that is what I do in one-on-one coaching. I can literally help you start saving up for your first 10K. So make sure you do book a call. I will leave a link in the description below. I think it's already linked in there anyway. But any questions before I go? And I'm trying to think. The reason why I actually put this title about restricting your spending is because I think there's just a massive misconception that when it comes to saving money, you just have to stop spending. You just have to completely restrict your spending and then that's it. When in reality, you don't necessarily have to do that. But what you do want to do is you want to be thinking about how you can actually make sure those savings are prioritized first. And if you can also start planning your spending, that will help too. And so I just want to make sure that you realize that planning your spending does not mean restricting your spending. Planning your spending just simply means that you have an idea on how much you want to be spending, how you want to spend your money. Because one of the things that I realized definitely a few years ago was that I was just spending money on just everything. I didn't even know what I was spending money on. I was just spending money here, there, and everywhere. And when it came to the end of the month, I couldn't tell you what I spent money on. And that was a problem because that was then stopping me from saving money. It was only until I started planning my spending where I was then able to actually enjoy my spending because I knew where my money was going. And at the same time, that then also helped me to save a lot more money too. Because when you now start to understand where your money is going, you start to spend money on things that actually matter to you rather than spending money on just any random thing and then getting to the end of the month and regretting what you actually spent the money on. There's a difference between actually understanding where your money is going versus just having your money just being here, there, and everywhere. And one of the things that I didn't really talk about as well is the fact that you can also plan like spontaneous spending as well, because you might be telling me, oh, Veronia, like sometimes I'm just spontaneous. I like to just go out randomly. You can literally plan for that. I have clients that literally plan for spontaneous events. So they make sure they have money for any spontaneous event. So if they do feel like going out or if they do feel like, buying something, they actually have money sitting in their account to fund that. So it's not to say that you can't fund any spontaneous events or when it comes to planning, you have to plan every single thing and you have to know exactly what you're doing. No, you don't have to do that. You can be able to also plan for other stuff as well. You can be able to plan for any, miscellaneous stuff, any spontaneous stuff too. So, any questions? I love that my husband just said hi, although he's literally just right next to me. But if there's no questions, I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, in terms of like saving your 10K, I want as many of us trying to think about doing that, not even just for 2024, but just starting now. If 10K is a goal that you have, you can start saving for that now. Don't wait till January. You don't have to wait till January. You can literally start saving for that now. Start prioritizing your savings. Start thinking about how much you want to be saving. Start planning your spending. You can do that now so that by the time we then go into 2024, you're already you're already in the you're halfway there. You're already in the process of saving up for that 10K. So yeah, I hope that was useful. Leanne says thank you. No, I'm glad that was helpful. Again, if you've got any questions, you can also follow me on Instagram as well. I literally I came here. I literally just got home 20 minutes ago. I'm not even gonna lie to you. We literally went axe throwing for my mum's birthday, and then we literally got here 20 minutes ago. But I really wanted to come on live and still, share some value and see, if there are any questions. But if there are no questions, I think I will leave it there. If you want more content as well, I am on Instagram at Veronia Spain. So do make sure you follow me on Instagram as well, because yeah, I share like behind the scenes, and I also just share like different things that I'm thinking about when it comes to like personal finances, and just any tips and tricks and anything like that. Um, but yeah, no, I'm gonna leave it there. But thank you guys so much. There will also be a video out on Tuesday, so make sure you do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Again, if you do need further support, that is what one-on-one coaching is for. I will leave a link in the chat as well if you do want to book a call to find out more about one-on-one coaching. But thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you on another live, hopefully next month. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and you will see when the next live is. But we're going to go have some dinner now. So thank you all and have a great evening. Bye.